In the headlines tonight,
because if you say independence, this is really abuse of power.
Forget about an independent judiciary for now. President Museveni tells judicial officers and lawyers during the Chief Justice Ben Kiwanuka Memorial Day.
Ukraine, like all other countries, deserve freedom, deserve independence.
Robert Chagulanyi, the president of NUP, who has been to Ukraine, says European nations are right not to fund IPOD because it has been sugarcoating NRM's injustices.
We shall have different fundraising strategies in different areas.
Also, the Office of the Prime Minister has launched a shillings 10.2 trillion disaster risk management plan to detect and prevent natural disasters. And in sports, the Federation of Motorsport of Uganda has launched the second round of the FMU Sprint Championship at Festino City in Mukono. Good evening and thanks for joining us on CTV PM Edition tonight. My name is Agi Uwase with Isaac Luchamzi on Sign Language. Kickstarting off tonight's edition, President Museveni has asked the judiciary and lawyers to go slow on building an independent judiciary, especially while dealing with certain cases. This was after lawyers and some judges appealed to the government for an independent judiciary during the 5th Benedicto Kiwanuka Commemoration Day at the High Court in Kampala. At the event, President Museveni insisted that the Chief Justice Benedicto Kiwanuka made a grave mistake to work for the Idi Amin's government. Today marks exactly 50 years since Uganda's first Chief Justice Benedicto Kiwanuka was abducted from his chambers, never to be seen again. Not even his remains have since been recovered. The official 5th Commemoration Day was attended by President Museveni. A few judges and justices were in attendance. Chief Justice Alfonso Wunyidolo, the family of the late Kiwanuka, attended the event, whose guest speaker was Professor Justice Ni Ashikote from the Supreme Court of Ghana. The new president of the Uganda Law Society, Bernard Owundo, called for the independence of the judiciary, especially to organs that disrespect court orders.
Some government institutions treat court orders as mere white papers with blank ink. They are accorded no respect and in some cases no attention at all. Security organs like the police, intelligence agencies, and departments like State House Anti-Corruption Unit, Health Monitoring Unit, among others, must listen to the voice of the law and respect them to the dot.
In response, Museveni said the judiciary and the bench should go slow while demanding the independence of the judiciary because it will lead the country into bigger problems.
How should we handle the issue of Mairo and the tenants, Bevanja and all these people? How should they be handled? If you come just artificially and you say, oh, court has decided that 5,000 people leave the parish, we say rubbish, they can't go. RDC comes in and says. So it's not such a simple issue. So therefore, because if you say independence, this is really abuse of power. Because you are using that cover of independence to do big injustice.
Museveni says a lot of amendments need to be made before the judiciary fully becomes independent. Remembering Chief Justice Benedicto Kiwanuka, Museveni says he was a principled man who took a correct stand, especially on national issues.
I salute C.J. Kiwanuka, especially for the opposing Mengo's opportunism of chauvinism. Now, this one, of course, he was a martyr, but he was a martyr in a situation we thought he should not have been in the first place.
He adds that it was wrong for Kiwanuka to join Idi Amin's government.
For us, we didn't think it was correct for Kiwanuka to accept to be Chief Justice of Amin. We think it was a mistake.
Chief Justice Alfonso Owunyidolo and the Minister for Constitutional Affairs, Norbert Mao, held Kiwanuka's commitment and loyalty to the rule of law.
So by nature, he was a principled person, was a person who was prepared to lose all to to achieve what was right in the eye of God and in the eye of man.
I end by reiterating our call to the government of Uganda on behalf of the Democratic Party to get involved in finding the remains of Benedicto Kiwanuka. We would be happy, like the Congolese, even if we just received a tooth.
Professor Emmanuel Ni Ashkote, the Supreme Court Justice of Ghana, who represented the Chief Justice of Ghana, praised Kiwanuka's works and called upon Ugandans to reflect upon them.
Indeed, the best tribute we can pay to Chief Justice Kiwanuka is to hold aloft the light he lit and stood for.
The judiciary also awarded the Principal Judge Emeritus, Yorkamba Mwine, and the late Letitia Chigongo, who was the first female Deputy Chief Justice. Flavian Inkuze for CTV, PM Edition.
Robert Chagulanyi Sentemu, the president of the opposition National Unity Platform, who has just returned from Ukraine and other European nations, has applauded European nations that fund the Inter-Party Organization for Dialogue for deciding to finance the organization. While meeting various opposition parties that subscribe to IPOD yesterday, the Constitutional Affairs Minister Norbert Mao said democratic governance facility that has been funding IPOD would stop operations in Uganda in December this year. We have the details.
Richard Wong reported to Mao that the Netherlands Institute for Multi-Party Democracy may not be in position to fund the political party's platform. Chagulanyi alias Bobby Wine says IPOD has been a dormant organization that has existed to sugarcoat the injustices and human rights abuses of the ruling National Resistance Movement, headed by President Museveni. NUP and the Forum for Democratic Change are the two opposition parties that snapped belonging to IPOD. NRM, DP, UPC and GEMA are active members of IPOD. Chagulanyi, who has just come back from Telluride Film Festival in the US, said they managed to make a documentary out of what the party went through in last year's elections and is going to be used as a tool to unmask NRM's lies to the whole world.
The documentary, ladies and gentlemen, chronicles the details of our struggle since we started practically taking on the dictatorship. But most importantly, it highlights on the horrors that the people of Uganda have suffered under General Museveni. But Museveni was smart, very smart in painting a rosy picture about his rule. And you will agree with me that in this movie, in this documentary, we've been able to unmask Museveni and his dictatorship.
After the festival, Chagulanyi visited Ukraine, which is currently at war against Russia's aggression. He says NUP and other opposition groups stand with Ukraine because it stood with African countries when they were fighting for independence.
So when we stand with the people of Ukraine, I've heard some regime propagandists claiming that we are not standing with the people that stood with us during our struggle for independence. I will remind you that in particular, the freedom fighters of South Africa, in particular the armed wing, the Mkonto Usizwe, 40% of them were trained in Ukraine in their struggle for freedom in South Africa.
Last week, EU lawmakers passed the resolution to delay plans for the construction of East Africa crude oil pipeline to review reports of human rights violations, unfair compensation of landowners where the pipeline will pass, as well as other environmental concerns in Uganda and Tanzania. Some politicians, including Deputy Speaker Thomas Tayebwa, said that the resolution by EU Parliament represents the lack of respect to Uganda's sovereignty. However, Chagulanyi says Tayebwa does not understand neocolonialism.
The Deputy Speaker of Parliament, Tayebwa, claiming that for the EU to stop the construction of the oil pipeline, the crude oil pipeline, is an act of neocolonialism. I looked at this man and I couldn't find the right description for him. All clad in colonial outfits, putting on those silly wigs that he does not even know what they mean.
EU's stand on the proposed pipelines was influenced not only by opposition groups in Uganda, but other international environment and social justice campaigners. Lubega Ibrahim, CTV, PM Edition.
Environmentalists under the National Association of Professional Environmentalists have asked the government of Uganda to study the pertinent issues raised by the European Union Parliament and other activists that want a review of the planned construction of the East African crude oil pipeline. The environmental body says the pipeline poses outstanding dangers to populations that will be displaced and the environment that should not be swept under the carpet.
On September 15th, the European Union Parliament passed a resolution expressing concern about numerous social and environmental risks posed by both the Tailenga and ECOP oil gas project in Uganda and Tanzania, calling for a temporary halt of the projects for at least 1 year to rethink the best options to address environmental and unfair land compensation concerns. The National Association of Professional Environmentalists and local environment protection groups have welcomed the resolutions, saying that the European Union re-echoed issues they have been raising about the project. Frank Muramuzi, the executive director of the National Association of Professional Environmentalists, says they have raised similar issues 10 years ago when the active oil and gas explosion began in the Albertine region by the Minister of Energy officials and the National Environmental Management Authority, and oil companies did not listen.
Issues are not new. When you read the statement, we have been raising these issues over 10 years. Written, NEMA has them, Minister of Energy has them, the companies have them, but they refused to address them.
If I was in the Ugandan government, I would say that actually the European Parliament is doing me a favor by identifying key issues that foreign companies can mess up here and go scot-free.
The activist says government and oil companies must address environmental concerns, land compensation issues, human rights concerns, and climate change dangers posed by the project.
Let's also tell those companies, foreign companies, we want good business here that is going to benefit us as citizens, as they also do business and get money.
The intergovernment agreement for the crude exports pipeline was signed in May 2017, and it was followed by front-ending engineering design for the ECOP that was carried out and approved by Petroleum Authority of Uganda in October 2020. The final investment decision agreement that cleared the construction of the pipeline by Sinok and Total Energies was signed in February. Production from the oil fields in Uganda is planned to be transported to the port of Tanga in Tanzania through the $10 billion ECOP cross-border pipeline. Shareholders are Total Energies 62%, the Uganda National Oil Company 15%, the Tanzanian Petroleum Development Corporation 15%, and the China National Offshore Oil Corporation 8%. Shemim Nativo Wetendo, CTV, PM Edition.
A select committee which was set up by the Deputy Speaker of Parliament, Thomas Tayebwa, yesterday to verify the academic qualifications of aspiring candidates for the East African Legislative Assembly seats has started its work today. The committee, chaired by the Mbarara City South Member of Parliament, Mwine Mpaka, have interfaced with aspirants to find out whether they are fit to represent Uganda in the regional parliament. We have more.
The select committee, which was set up by the Deputy Speaker of Parliament Thomas Tayebwa yesterday to verify the academic qualification of the aspiring candidates for the East African Legislative Assembly seats, has started its work today. The committee, chaired by the Mbarara City South MP Mwine Mpaka, have interfaced with aspirants to find out whether they are fit to represent Uganda in the regional parliament.
So, but we thank you, Mr. Kaija.
Several aspirants showed up to interface with members on the select committee. After the verification process, the aspirant said what is being done will help MPs to vote for the right people to represent Uganda.
The committee is interested to know whether you have submitted the right documents, but also they are digging deeper to understand whether you are very knowledgeable about the work of the community.
Time is now. The time is now, and we don't have time to take people who are going to learn on job. I have been there. I've been a member of parliament in the 9th parliament and a member of Foreign Affairs Committee. I've traversed widely and have the experience to go to Yala to start on day one.
I've just come out of a meeting where I appeared before the vetting committee of Parliament that was constituted by the Right Honourable Speaker. I've submitted my documents, and I want to thank God that they were all fine. I got an okay, and I was cleared.
Asuman Basalirwa, one of the members of the select committee, says emphasis is being put on academic documents, finding out whether the candidates are Ugandan citizens, registered voters, among other issues. According to him, the committee will follow all the rules, procedures and law without fear or favor.
The issues are in the public domain. You look at the requirements under Article 50 of the treaty. You look at the requirements under the Constitution, because for one to qualify to be elected as a member of the East African Legislative Assembly, they must qualify to be members of Parliament in their respective countries. That means somebody should be 18 years and above, should be a registered voter. After we have interacted with all the candidates, we will go into a discussion and evaluation of candidate by candidate against the information which has been given. So at this point in time, nothing can be disclosed.
During today's plenary sitting, the Deputy Speaker, Thomas Taiwa, informed Parliament that the verification committee has to present a report in Parliament not later than tomorrow to know candidates who will be fully nominated.
The verification committee that is vetting candidates for ARA has started, and they'll be reporting back tomorrow, so that I hope by the time we finish plenary tomorrow, we shall be able to know the fully vetted candidates.
Uganda has 9 slots in the Iyala Parliament. 6 are supposed to be for NRM, which has the majority in Parliament, 2 from opposition parties and 1 for independent candidates. Elections will take place on Thursday next week. Sarah Nakandi for CTV PM Edition.
We take a short break and we'll be right back with more news. Do stay with us.
so much more on Star Times channel number 248. Stay tuned for a world of endless possibilities. CTV. Don't blink.
Sometimes in life, we spend all the time trying to live other people's life. And along the way, we lose who we are by copying what other people are doing in their relationship.
You see, from the last time I met your sister, I've not spent a day or a minute without thinking about her.
It's a good surprise on a Monday. This is nice.
So you and him are we're just friends. Wow. Come on.
Just friends. You either tell me where you're from or you go back to where you've been. Thinking it would work out for us, but yet to find out that's not who we are after experiencing a great disappointment.
She's in love with some other man, so classy, a gentleman, not poor dogs like you.
These are the mistakes girls do.
Now showing on CTV. Don't blink.
Welcome back and thanks for staying with us. Now moving on to the world of sports, the Federation of Motorsport of Uganda has launched the second round of the FMU Sprint Championship at Festino City, Mukono. This brings excitement to motorsport lovers since Festino City will on September 25th host the event for the first time in 3 years. Now various drivers have confirmed taking part in the Sunday event.
The famous rally track of Festino City was known for closing the rally calendar year in Uganda on every Boxing Day. The tradition came to a halt in 2019. The track was stopped from hosting both rally and motorbike events due to safety concerns. This will, however, change on Sunday as the second round of the FMU Sprint Championship will be hosted at Festino City, Mukono. FMU's Deputy Vice President Raymond Kibira, who doubles as event organizer, explains why the Federation decided to bring back motorsport to Festino.
There were some safety challenges, but the safety challenges were earmarked in some key areas here. You remember the pre-watch, when we go to the track, you will see there used to be a tree just in the corner, the lower corner, of the lower track. That tree has since been removed and the corner has been slightly widened to avoid the incident that happened at the time.
The second round of the sprint in Festino will also see the return of motorbikes that will open the event as a curtain raiser. Dabella Apolot, who is a rider parent of Fortune Center Mu, says much as points will not be scored, the fans will experience the best show from riders including current African champion Gift Sebuguzi.
For the part of motorbikes, I've mobilized about 30 of them to come and take part on the 25th event as curtain raisers. And among the key riders, we have the current African champion for FIM Africa, that's Gift Sebuguzi, accompanied by Fortune Center Mo, the Abote brothers, we have Fatu Chigundu, we have the team captain for Uganda, Alistair Blake.
The second round of the FMU Sprint Championship will consist of 2 rally categories, including the 2-wheel Sprint Championships and the Club Rally Championship. Ibrahim Lubega currently sits first in the 2-wheel category on 25 points and second in the Club Rally Championship on 52 points. Lubega says on top of earning more points in the championship, he is excited on behalf of the Mukono fans since he was raised in Mukono town.
since 2019, with Mokono without hosting a sprint in the area, but really we are excited and we are willing to show our fans what we have, because many have taken long and the others have never even seen me competing in a rally championship. But for today's case, come 25th September, we shall be competing.
19 drivers have so far confirmed their participation. They include the current NRC leader, Posiano Lwakataka, among others. The deadline for registration is Saturday afternoon. Noah Walakira, CTV, PM edition.
We've come to the end of CTV PM edition, but being a Wednesday today, the big debate is on and Gabriel Iguma is on standby at the moment. Good evening, Gabriel.
Good evening, Aggie.
How are you this evening?
Very well, thanks, and I'm glad to be back.
Well, what is the topic of discussion today?
Well, today Parliament is actually vetting those who have showed interest in being Uganda's next representatives at the East African Legislative Assembly. So we talk about that process of getting our next representatives for EALA.
Yes, and who are the panelists tonight?
Well, at the moment, because the vetting is still going on,
yes,
some of our panelists are actually still in Parliament. So we are coordinating with them. But you should know that the Secretary General of DP is supposed to be on the panel. We're also supposed to have somebody who wanted to go to EALA, but the NRM processes kind of cut him out. So it really is looking like it's going to be an interesting one.
Yes, and for the benefit of the viewer out there, what should be the expectations in regard to tonight's discussion?
Well, a number of things. We're going to look at the legal aspects, whether Parliament is proceeding correctly, but also broadly understanding what the benefit of EALA is to the ordinary Ugandan, because this community is supposed to be people-centered. So we will talk about the people-centeredness and what needs to be done by our next representatives to make us feel like, yeah, this whole thing exists for us.
Well, we wish you a great discussion tonight.
Sure thing. Thank you.
Well, that is all we had for you on the CTV PM edition tonight. Keep watching CTV. Coming up, like I mentioned earlier, is the big debate with Gabriel Iguma. Have a good night.